What is up, Brother Bob? The pigs are back for another episode of the Blind Pig Podcast, courtesy of bgobsession.com. If you've been here before, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming back. If you're new to the site, new to us, new to this podcast, we are available on all major audio streaming platforms, youtube.com, all major socials, as well as at the mothership, bgobsession.com. So, this is obviously coming back off a win for the first time
Totally
in
fair.
9 weeks. Huh?
I said totally fair, man. Those are important. You got to stop for those.
Yep, had to. Sorry about
Trust me, brother. She's
that.
not going to be that size much longer.
I know. But eight game losing streak snapped at the hands of the Giants. A couple tidbits about this game. This is the first time we've swept the Giants in God knows how many years. And I want to say we have now won our last 4 games against the Giants. So a team that used to be our bugaboo, regardless of record, that seemed to always find a way to beat us, even when we were quote unquote the better team on the field. Hopefully that means that we've exercised some demons against a division rival, because that's oh so important. Is finding a way to, you win your division, you generally make the playoffs. So the more games you can beat those consistent repeat opponents, the better off you are. I don't know how you felt. We can touch a little bit on the game before we get into the kind of the deep dive of it. I think the team won ugly. And 29 points might not seem ugly, but that wasn't exactly. We were not at our best, and we still beat a team that we should beat. So that's a positive. I don't think this wasn't a hollow victory. This wasn't a 12-10 field goal fest where, you know what I mean. I think we saw some good, we saw some bad. And what was your initial just overview scope of the game, and then we can kind of dig into the details.
I know that last week you and I didn't talk about who we thought was going to win. Well, I mean, I guess we talked a little bit about it, but this was a game I expected to win. Of course, I expected to win the game the week before, too, when we played Minnesota, and we got, blasted. But the Giants are not a good football team. They're in disarray. The head coach got fired. I'm sorry. I don't care who you are. If your head coach gets fired in the middle of the season, you are not a good football team. It's just that simple. You can make a lot of legitimate excuses for the Commanders this year. Maybe you can make some not legitimate excuses for the Commanders this year. I don't know. But this was a game I expected to win. And so much so that I actually got out of my house and drove up to the local Redskin bar that's not too far from me here, and hung out with the Knuckleheads. Shout out to Ken and Reggie. Great hosts as always. Just, I don't know. Gosh, the place is only 5-10 minutes from my house, so I really should be there more often. But, I felt good enough about it to drive up and hang out with some fellow Burgundy and Gold fanatics. There's a whole room full of them, which, for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time, I do not live in the greater Washington, D.C. area. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. What makes this even more interesting is that the room next door to the Washington room at the pub we go to is the Philadelphia Eagles room. So I walked in, and there's a sea of green, and they were not having a bad day. But luckily, we didn't have a bad day either. I like the fact, if I take some things away from this, so I don't, maybe you don't agree with this, Derek, feel free to disagree. It was ugly, but it was a complete team effort. I saw great stuff on all 3 aspects of the game, right? The offense did some really good stuff. The defense took the ball away a couple of times. Special teams had a touchdown, and a couple of fairly big plays. I like the fact that this was a complete team win. It wasn't, the offense went out and just ran over the Giants or the defense strangled their offense or whatever. It was everybody contributed to this in some way, shape, or form. I like the fact that I saw some stuff from some of the younger guys. Coleman got back on the field thanks to an injury from Tunsil. Um, and he looked good in that left tackle role against the team with a fairly strong defensive line. I I'm beginning to wonder if Coleman, if Peters was right all along, and everybody else was wrong, and Coleman is actually a tackle in this league and not a guard, because he doesn't look bad when he comes in and plays tackle, but he seems to have a problem playing guard. Um, I don't know. Maybe he's the heir apparent to Tunsil whenever Tunsil decides to retire, and he turns into a real stud down the road. That wouldn't bother me too much. San Ristel with another interception. I don't know. He's got several. He's leading the team in interceptions this year. That's not a bad thing to see. Krosky Merritt had a decent game. Ben Sennett had a big catch, and he was the primary target on more than one play. It just didn't work out. But again, the dude's caught every single ball that's been thrown at him. I don't know. It's I I can't decide if he's going to be a solid 25 to 30 catch a season guy, or if he's going to turn into a 50 catch a season tight end for us. But whatever it is he ends up doing, I think it's more than what fans expect at this point in time. So I don't know. I was happy. I know we gave up some space in the draft chart. I know that. I'm aware. But I'll take 2 wins over the Giants in a single season every single year. Thank you very much. I don't know. What'd you think?
I'm with you, and I mentioned this. I've mentioned this, and I've been steadfast about it on the board and everywhere, and hopefully I can clarify it a little bit vocally better than I can maybe via type. I I understand the benefit of having a better draft pick, right? Don't get me wrong, but in my personal opinion, the
Yep. Agreed.
the
Agreed.
the draft pick and the win-loss record right now is not the best case scenario. Okay, so us picking top 5 is not what's best for this team long term. It's probably second best for but what is my opinion what's best for this team long term is answering questions. And do we have a viable weapon on the offense and especially in the special teams department in Jalen Lane? I think a box got checked this weekend. Why he's not more, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, he is locking himself up as a long-term wide receiver. Now, I'm not saying he's a long-term starting wide receiver, but as you're rounding out your depth chart, answering these type of questions is a big deal. So he's now got 2 punt returns for touchdowns this season. Which, when was the last time we've had that happen? I mean, that's Brandon Banks, maybe. Stuff like that.
I do
Krosky
know he's
Merritt
tied for the team record. He's tied now for the team record in punt returns for a season for a touchdown.
really?
Nobody in the
That's
history of
crazy.
Washington has ever had more than 2 in a season.
Yeah, and that includes Brian Mitchell and Darrell Green and Deion Sanders and insert name here. So,
Yep.
I think that's
Yep.
I think that is I'm more than happy to win football games if you're establishing long-term answers at position groups, right? And
Mhm.
I'll get a little deeper into the philosophy of that in a minute. But I think seeing Ben Sinnott flash, I don't for the life of me understand why he's not getting a better opportunity. I have to just kind of give that up to Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, because it seems like every time he gets the ball or gets thrown the ball, he makes the play, right? And
Yeah.
so what I don't know what the holdup is there. Hopefully, over the next 3 games, we have that question answered, and he can take another step to lessen the priority of a pass catching tight end in the offseason, where it's not something that everybody thinks that we have to attack with a flaming torch. That, you know what I mean? We can kind of whoa a little bit. Um, I liked seeing Sanderstow rebound, like you said. And if Sanderstow can continue to develop and because of his interception, if that meant we won the game, but because of that, that's because not just a lucky interception, but he made the right read. He understood the film, blah blah, all of those things. So those things happening are more important to me than the wins and losses. And that is better for us as a long-term answer when we're locking in young guys who are going to be able to be long-term contributors to the team. And furthermore, I subscribe more to the idea that draft picks aren't found, they're made. Now, obviously, some guys are more talented than other guys, don't and some guys are going to have a better chance of hitting than other guys. But I don't think it's an accident that some of the best franchises in the NFL consistently draft well. And it isn't only because they scout well, it's because they develop well. So, in my opinion, a top 10 pick is a top 10 pick. And I'm not so much worried about addressing a specific need when I'm drafting as much as I want somebody who's going to be a long-term contributor, and I want to have confidence in my coaching staff and my front office to develop him into a hit, not depend on him being a hit coming out of college, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. So I think there's a reason why Philly always seems to have the right hit their picks. You know why? It's because they coach well, they draft well, and they don't draft well by meaning they always find the guy. They find the right guy, the right fit, the right whatever.
Mhm.
And they develop well. And when they develop, they invest in their guys. They set their guys up to be successful. How many times have we watched this team that we root for ask guys to do something that even us as fans understands is their weakness?
Yes.
And that is how you develop a hit. If a guy's coming out of college and he's not a good press man cover corner, and then you ask him to play press man coverage, and then you get mad at him because he gets abused, what does that mean? He's not a hit, or does that mean that you've taken away his ability to be a hit?
Right.
So that's where I look at if we drop from 5 to 8, but we can. I want to have confidence in my coaching staff that drafting the guy at 8th, they're going to still be able to find a guy that they can fit in and develop a hit out of that draft pick, or 10th, or whatever the draft pick ends up being. I John has said on here multiple times, Boone, and I agree with him. I don't necessarily believe that winning carries over from throughout an offseason. There's,
Mhm.
excuse me, too much turnover. There's too much time away, all of these things. But I do think that a winning culture can be established, and that goes beyond just an offseason. That becomes an expectation.
Yep.
I want Dan Quinn and I want those coaches to be walking in that room every Sunday with the expectation that you're going to put in the energy and the effort and the mentality and the everything to win the football game, regardless of whether you're 0-16, 16-0, it's a playoff game or it's week 1. It doesn't matter. The expectation is you're coming in here and you're going to work to win the football game.
Yep. Agreed.
So watching the game this weekend, I think there were some things that jumped out. Looked like, I mean, Krosky Merritt looked to rebound, but he also did put the ball on the turf twice, which is not okay. Or once. McNichols fumbled once, I think. But he got hit hard. If that had been his only fumble of the season, you kind of look at that and you say that's not a big deal. But he was running at a different pace this weekend than he had been in the games that had succeeded his fumbles. He didn't seem as ferocious and aggressive, and he put the ball on the turf. Luckily, we were able to. Connerly, I think, even jumped on it.
Yeah.
Terry McLaurin went.
Yeah. Krosky Merritt had one. McNichols had one, but we lost McNichols. Krosky Merritt's we recovered, and
Okay,
Connerly got it. Connerly
right.
actually had 2 recoveries.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin had another strong game. He only had three receptions for 69 yards, but the one was a big touchdown. You kind of saw
Yep.
him get that breakaway route running back. I think if Jayden's the quarterback, he leads. He's got the arm strength to lead Terry McLaurin into the end zone. He doesn't have to slow down and catch the ball and then make two guys miss and score. He still did it. And Mariota, surprisingly enough, had 211 yards passing on 10 completions,
Yeah.
which is crazy to think about. So there were some explosive plays, and it was not just the dink and dunk offense. There were some big time plays. Guys were open.
Yep.
The Giants are not a good football team. I'm not sitting here trying to act like we just beat, the best, the pick your premium team in the NFC. We beat a team that had more losses than we did, but the team showed juice, and again, they came out ready to win, ready to play. They were excited to win that football game, even though at the end of the day, it means nothing as far as statistically speaking. And even I don't know if you saw Jeremy Reeves' tweet after the game.
Did
Well,
not.
he basically said screw you and your draft pick on Twitter, like basically saying we don't care about draft pick. You know what I mean? Like we don't as players don't give a damn about draft position, and they don't,
No, and they shouldn't.
and that's they shouldn't. So I was happy to see that effort. I was happy to see that team come out. I mean, obviously, it was not a perfect game. To your point, it did. There was aspects of complementary football up and down the field, uh, and some key plays on times in each position group, but or each offense, defense, and special teams. Does that game win you more games than it loses? Probably not. That's about a 500 effort in my opinion, but I was happy to see what I saw, and I probably would have been a little more disappointed had Ertz been on the field and he caught that big play, and had Lattimore been the guy to make that interception, and had Eckler been the punt returner and scored because that's not telling you anything, and you're not, that's just old guys winning football
Right.
games. So I was happy to see the youngsters get out there and ball a little bit and make some plays and try to get their legs under them back as we finish out this season.
Now, absolutely, absolutely agreed. All the way across the board. I'm thrilled with the contribution of the younger guys. I'm a little stunned. I'm a little stunned by Mariota's numbers. I didn't recognize that he had that many yards on just 10 until literally you threw up the scroll across the bottom, and I had to go double check the box score. I mean, that's a 21 yards a pass play. That's impressive. That's impressive for any quarterback in the league, much less your QB2. McLaurin with a long of 51. Ben Sennett had the second longest catch in the day for 36. And I'll tell you what, that catch doesn't go to Zach Ertz for 36. Zach Ertz does not make that play. That's not his kind of a play. Sennett caught that in stride, running,
streaking down the middle between the
right,
hash marks.
Right. Ertz is a precision route runner that's going to set up someplace in the zone and be available, but he's largely going to be a static target for the most part, unless he's on a crossing route. That was not a crossing route. That was like a post. You know what I mean? Sennett was almost playing wide receiver, which was part of what got me a little excited about it. And I think that's one of those things that maybe we, the fans, did not appreciate about this. I know a lot of guys, especially on BGO, have been griping about the fact that we've got a number 2 draft pick tied up in our tight end, and he's not playing that much. But I think the game plan for tight end has to change for Ben Sennett. He's not the same player Zach Ertz is. And, in the interest of I don't know, maybe giving Kingsbury the benefit of the doubt, the game plan is set up for the type of tight end Ertz is.
Or Bates.
Or Bates even. Yeah. But Bates is arguably another tackle. He
Yeah.
may be the single best pass blocking tight end in the league, or run blocking tight end in the league. That's why the guy's making his money. It's I don't know what's he. Hang on, I've got season stats up. What's Bates got for the season for receptions? John
You
Bates,
can probably count it with
he's
two
got
hands.
9 receptions on 13
Yep.
targets for 90 yards and no touchdowns.
Right.
As opposed to Senate, who's got 5 for 5 for 77. So he's only a few yards behind Bates on half as many catches, a third as many targets, and oh, by the way, he's got a touchdown in there too. I don't
Right.
know. I think Senate is a completely different type of tight end. And if we see a full-time transition, if Ertz retires, and I'll be honest, at 35, I don't expect to see Ertz back in a commander uniform. I just really
And
don't.
that was a nasty injury. It wasn't a non-contact
Yeah,
pop.
correct.
That was a
No,
yeah.
yeah, this was a. I don't. All right, tell me what you think, but I watched that play back again multiple times, and I felt like I was watching the RG3 injury against Baltimore his rookie season all over again.
Where the you yeah,
the way
where
Ertz's
oh my
leg
god, who
whipped
hit him?
around, it
Yeah,
just
where the guy's shoulder pad like hit his thigh and
yeah,
his leg just
and
kind of like
yes.
yeah,
That's what it felt like all over again. And RG3 was never the same again, and he was 22. I don't expect
right.
Ertz at 35 to recover from this. Certainly not in time for early next season. And I'll be honest, I don't expect Zach to play again. I think Zach retires from this. Um, I think. Well,
Yeah,
let me rephrase it.
I think he knew it. I don't know if you watched the clip of him getting carted off, but he was
Yeah,
extremely emotional. I think he knew it as
yeah.
soon as as soon as that adrenaline kind of crashed a little bit. I think he knew it was done. He probably just played his last football.
I mean, by the time he's ready to come back from this injury, he's going to be 36. Man, 36
Right.
is hard for a linebacker, even if you've never had injuries, but coming off an ACL
Tight
injury.
end.
So I expect to see Cliff Kingsbury start to morph the tight end role into something that fits Ben Sennett more than Zach Ertz. And I think we've already seen the beginning of it. That catch against New York, I think, was indicative of what we're likely to see going forward. I'm I don't know. I'm excited to watch Sennett the last 3 games of this season. I think we're going to see a completely different player and somebody that adds something to this offense that we haven't had. Because that type of a player lined up that close to your tackles is going to pull a completely different type of coverage. How many
Yep.
teams in the league can cover a guy that plays that way? You know, I mean, he kind of reminds me a little bit of I don't know. All right, I'm going to get in the Wayback Machine. The way he plays reminds me a lot more of a Kellen Winslow from way back in the day, right? When Gibbs was here the first time. For you guys that are old enough to remember that, or um, who was the
He
other guy? Was just go ahead.
he kind of I think he fits more of the Cooley mold, the kind of guy that
Yes.
can,
Yep.
you know what I mean, and he's got the ability to line up. And we say it all the time. I say it all the time. The NFL, the talent is so good in the NFL that very rarely does 11 on 11 like you're not going to line up 11 on 11 and expect to just bully people and win.
Right.
Like how you win in the NFL is matchups. You take
Yep.
advantage of favorable matchups. Randy Moss made a living with matchups, right? Like
Yes.
it didn't matter who you put on him; he was the better matchup, unless Sean
Well,
Taylor was
and
playing, or you know,
to get closer to home, Art Monk.
right?
Monk was
He,
the king of the matchup. I mean, he was good for 10 yards no matter who was covering him. And yeah,
right.
you're absolutely right. I don't
So
think
if you,
most fans understand that the difference between 3-14 and 14-3 isn't nearly as great as the record would indicate.
Something I screen like I something I mention on the board all the time is that to that point right there because and we even talked about it on last week's podcast and I'll go back to it again, the game against the Cowboys, that we go down and we score and we make it 20-15. And there was a play where George Pickens makes a toe tap catch on the sideline that was elite against
Yes.
Lattimore that sets up a touchdown to end the half. And that game is completely different if they don't score because then now we're getting the ball coming out of halftime. We've got the moment, all of the things. And you're exactly right because you know what? That wide receiver can run a 4-4. The guy covering him can run a 4-3. The talent is there. And now you look at the corners that are 6'2", 205, and they can run a 4-3. And they're running it, and they're as strong and as physically opposing as the guy they're covering. So
Yes.
now it is literally exploiting the matchup. And that's why guys like Travis Kelce, who is a wide receiver that's built like a tight end, are so good in the league for so long, is because they're almost impossible to cover. Because every time that they get, not only do they line up from somebody, they're generally a mismatch. They have a coach that is able to scheme up a mismatch 90% of the time. You look at guys like Tyreek Hill in his prime.
Yep.
You look at Terry McLaurin. I mean, so it's being able to scheme into a matchup, a favorable matchup that you're now lined up where you've got a guy, Bobby Wagner, covering DeAndre Swift. Okay, that's a matchup problem for us. Or Bobby Wagner covering the running back from the Giants on a wheel route. That's a matchup problem. Bobby Wagner's talented, but it's a matchup problem because he doesn't have the speed to be able to put himself in position to be comfortable to defend the pass. And they scored a touchdown. So it's all about matchups, and matchups are the biggest thing that make the difference between winning and losing, and it is not talent. Talent matters, but to your point, I don't think people realize how close, how easy a team can sway one way or the other. Sorry on my rant.
Your rant is well placed. I mean, you only have to go back a couple of weeks in this league to look and see what a difference, the whole matchup scheme, the scheme makes in terms of everything. Go back and look at the Miami game and then look at the Denver game. McLaurin sat out the Miami game, played the Denver game. And look at the way everything slants downhill for everybody else on the roster. You put Terry McLaurin back in the lineup, and now one of the premier defenders in the league is totally tied up with McLaurin in Patrick Surtain. If we take McLaurin out of that lineup, now that's Deebo Samuels. And then you work your way all the way down the roster and you look at what other guys did or didn't do. In that Miami game, Zach Ertz had 4 catches for 42 yards. But then you look at the Denver game. And I should have had Denver up too. I only had Miami up. You go back and look at the Denver game, and Ertz had like what, 8, 9 catches
for over 100 and a touchdown.
And over he dropped 100.
A touchdown.
Huh? He had 10 catches for 106, right? And
yeah.
The difference between those two games is the fact that he was playing against the 3rd, 4th, or 5th best guy on the Denver defense instead of the 2nd or 3rd best guy on the Denver defense, because we tied up number 1 with Terry McLaurin. A week before, that would have been Deebo Samuel. And everything would have slid, and Ertz would have had tighter coverage the entire game and not had 10 for 106. So it's, I get frustrated when guys look at McLaurin and go, he's not a number 1. Hey, you know what? Maybe he doesn't produce number 1 numbers, but he soaks up the number 1 guy on the other side secondary, and he makes every single other guy on our offense better because of that. I don't know. To me, that's a number one guy. Maybe, all right, if you want to be technical about it, maybe 1A, because the number one guy still goes out and beats their guy. Although, he had 7 for 96 and a touchdown against arguably the single best cornerback in the league. Most teams don't even throw at Surtain. And all McLaurin did was have 7 for 96 and 1. I don't know. I get frustrated with the argument. But I look at the way the whole offense is set up at the moment, and I think we see a big change in the way Cliff plays the tight end because Sennett's a completely different player. And I think by the Christmas game against Dallas or the second game against Philadelphia, we really start to see what Sennett can do. Because my guess is they are having to retool the route tree that gets called on any given play for tight end with Sennett in the game as opposed to Ertz. I haven't gone back.
The other thing that
Go ahead.
The other thing to your point, and it's just now coming to me, and I don't know that I'm even making this argument, but I just want to float this. The other thing that not only are you retooling your tight end, but that changes everything behind the tight end, right? Like,
yes.
This playbook might never have had the tight end 15 yards downfield between the hash marks. So they've got route combinations between the slot receivers and the other wide receivers to be there. But now you've got to install an offense now that doesn't have that because you need to make room for that.
Right.
So it's not just as easy as insert player here, call play X. Like that's not how things work. It's not Madden, right? Like,
right. Now your X and Y have to change too. Yeah.
Right.
Great
and then
point.
On top of that, so I'm wondering if that's to your point. I'm thinking out loud when I say that there's multiple dimensions to being able to get a guy like that an opportunity, and it's not just as easy as changing your playbook. Because, like I said, this isn't Madden. You can't go in and just change your scheme and then know that the guy that's running the route, you know what I mean, has your entire playbook memorized. That's just not how things work in the real world. Or is it worth it to even do it with 3 games left to go? That might be an off-season thing.
I mean, I expect to see some changes, but are we going to see a complete retooling? No, you're probably correct. It's a great call. I don't know. I felt like it was a pretty good game for us. Do I expect that to carry over this week? I don't know. Probably not. Philadelphia is a completely different beast. Having said that, I don't see this as an unwinnable game for us. Philadelphia has not been the juggernaut this season that they have been in previous years. And could we steal one on Saturday? Yeah, I think maybe we could steal one on Saturday. I think we got better odds of beating the Cowboys. We're very up and down. But I can see us potentially stealing one on Saturday. I don't know. I was just thrilled we beat the Giants. I can't get too frustrated about anything else that happens this season. We beat the Giants twice. I mean, I'd rather beat the Cowboys twice, but it is what it is. What do you think about shutting Daniels down?
I'm not gonna lie. I've stood by this, and I still believe in this. I think there's value in reps. The season was over 2 weeks ago when he came back and played against my Minnesota, right? Like, so my feeling now isn't any different than it was then. It's not about wins. It's not about points. It's not about, and it's not even about continuity. It's about repetitions. It's about things you cannot replicate. You cannot duplicate game reps in any way in practice. Or, I mean, you can do the simulator even at double speed, but it's not the same when you don't have the fear that the guy's going to take your fucking head off. Like, and
Right.
pardon my French, but it's the truth. And being able to read a defense and read coverage changes and do things that are unexpected, because the simulator is only simulating what it is expected. I don't know if you follow Pat McAfee, but he had a
On and off.
great story. He had a great story about when he was in Indianapolis, and they were playing against the Steelers, and they were they were inside the 20, and it was a field goal, and he said they were on like the right hash mark, and it was a guaranteed 100%er. If this is the defensive alignment on field goal block, we're running a fake, because it's a pretty much a guarantee he's able to turn and run in for a touchdown. And they go up to the line. He gets down in a to take the snap, and he looks over, and Troy Polamalu just happens to decide to line up opposite of where he has ever lined up before, on the right side of the defense. Or like if you're on the kicking team, he's never lined up on the right side. He's always been on the left side or back behind the left side. He lines up on the line of scrimmage on the right side, and McAfee starts losing his mind. He goes, "We're kicking, we're kicking, we're kicking, we're kicking." It's just stuff. And then he said Troy Polamalu ruined his ability to score a rushing touchdown, and for the only time in his career there was an opportunity for it. And it's a funny story to hear him say it, because he calls him Polamalu, and he just starts bitching about it. It's hilarious, but it's nuance like that
Yeah.
you can't predict and you can't plan for, and getting that execution, and not just seeing it, but going through the repetition of identifying it and making either the right call or the wrong call in the moment is a learning experience that can't be replicated, because it's something that's never happened before, right? Like, an alignment you've never seen before happens. So what do you do?
So
Sorry, go
I
ahead, Bob.
well, what you talking about McAfee's thing, I go back just a couple of weeks. We all watched Bobby Wagner grab Martin at the line of scrimmage and talk to him.
McGee? You talking about McGee?
Well, that was what, 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
When Bobby Wagner ran up, got between Martin and the line of scrimmage, and was talking to him really quick before the lineup, and Martin, for the first time all game, drops back into coverage and lands in exactly the right spot to disrupt Bo Nix's pass play.
You know Martin or McGee? Wasn't that George McGee?
No, that was Martin, because Martin was lined up. You're right. It was a defensive lineman. It was Martin, and he drops.
Oh, Jacob Martin.
Yeah. Jacob Martin. He drops into coverage, and he's in exactly the right spot. And that was 100% Bobby Wagner seeing something. And the offense wasn't even completely lined up at the line of scrimmage yet. They were breaking the huddle when he ran up and said whatever it was he said to Martin. But whatever it was perfect. And all of that is game experience. That is Bobby Wagner, 13 years of game experience, plus watching film of Denver, and he saw something, and all of it clicked. But without the game experience, without the film, without everything that he's ever done, does he make that call? And these 3 games, are we going to see a difference in Daniels in September because he sat out these 3 games? I don't know. Will we see a difference in Daniels 4 years from now because he missed these 3 games? Yeah, maybe.
Right.
And to a point that you have made more than once on this podcast, this isn't just 3 games. It's 3 games against division opponents that we play twice a year. These aren't random teams that we see once every 4 years when their division comes around. This is 2 games a year against Dallas and Philadelphia, and we are losing experience against those players, those teams, that coaching staff. I look, I know the whole world is freaked out because they watched Pat Mahomes blow an ACL this weekend. If you haven't seen the play, I would urge you to go look at the play. Um, it wasn't a dirty play. In fact, I would call it a fluke, to be completely honest with you. I think it was absolutely a fluke play that could have happened in practice, that could have happened in preseason, that could have happened in a meaningless, which it pretty much was for Kansas City, because let's face it, they've won more games than we have, but they're damn near as far out of the playoffs as we are in the AFC. I mean,
Right.
let's face it, they were needing some miracle results to get into the playoffs this year as it was before Mahomes went down. But I just watched that play and I'm like, dude, this could have happened in any NFL training camp for any one of the 32 teams. It was an absolute fluke play in my admittedly unexperienced opinion. It just doesn't look like much. And so
I
everybody that's
agree.
going, man, how you going to feel if Jayden Daniels blows an ACL? You know what, guys? He could blow an ACL the opening day of training camp.
Hey,
He could do the entire
D'Angelo
offseason.
Hall re-ruptured his Achilles making a sandwich at 2:00 in the morning, in his kitchen. I mean, at some point,
There you go.
you've got to realize, like, in my opinion, I'm not saying these guys are just a machine or these guys, but at some point, he is as likely to injure himself in these next 3 games as he is in the first 3 games of 2026.
He could blow an ACL catching a metro into watch a Caps game.
Right.
And I don't know. Now, all right, so I guess here's the question, because this seems to be what everybody's arguing about at the moment. Nobody seems to be arguing about whether or not we should have shut him down. Everybody seems to be arguing about whether or not this was Quinn's call, Peter's call, Harris's call, or some combination of 2 or all 3 of them.
If you're asking me,
Yeah.
I will say I think people need to take a second to realize that this is what adults do. Dan Quinn is the head coach. Dan Quinn's focus needs to be the head coach. His focus needs to be to win every fucking game that they play, and he needs to not put people in a position to get hurt, but he needs to not worry about 2027. Okay? He can worry about 2026 and 2027 in the offseason when he's having meetings with Adam Peters about what he needs to build his team. But right now, he needs to focus on 25. And he needs to focus on what his goals are for 2025 and what is the best thing for the team in 2025. Adam Peters
Yep.
needs to focus on what's the best thing for the team going forward, because Adam Peters' job isn't dependent on if they win on Sunday or not. His job is if they have the ability to win a Super Bowl in the future. And as long as that window is open, he's going to have a job. Josh Harris's job is to worry about how much money he can make. And I say that honestly. I don't say that in a way to sound malicious. I say it in a way to sound honest. He is the owner of the team. His goal is profit. That's why you own a National Football League team. He should not worry about day-to-day operations, nor should he worry about long-term roster construction. But he should worry about the most important and most valuable asset to his franchise, and that is Jayden Daniels right now. So I say all this to say this is what happens when you have a good structure running your football franchise, is that you can have 3 opinions work together and they all have their own data points and you ultimately make the right decision for what is best long term, right?
Yep.
Dan Quinn should not be sitting here saying Dan Quinn should never float the idea that we should bench Jayden Daniels ever, because he's the coach.
Yeah.
His goal and his priority and his research, his homework, everything should be what what can I possibly do to set my team up to have the best possible to win the football game this coming Sunday. And that might include Jayden Daniels.
Agreed.
And then he needs to sit down with Adam Peters. And Adam Peters needs to pull him aside and say, hey, look, I get you want to win, but here's what we're looking at. We're a little sketchy here. These are here's this group of data points. So let's come to a collective decision that makes the most sense for the team. But that also comes with the idea of saying, hey, Adam, or hey, Dan, as your boss, I'm going to be transparent and we're going to have a conversation. And I understand that you're dealing with injuries and I understand you're dealing with the most lost games of any team in the league. And I understand you have the most players that have touched IR of any team in the league. And I understand that we had the harder schedule than we did last. So all of these things are here. So as a manager and a proper leader, I want you to understand that that I got you. Okay, we need to work together now, looking forward for 2026. So I think we should take Jayden off the field and put him on IR. And I know that you're doing that with the understanding that me doing that is affecting your ability to win the game. So having 7 wins in 2025 is not going to affect your employment in 26 any more than having 5 wins in 25, right? So
Yeah.
you do these kind of conversations so that you don't hinder Dan Quinn, but you also help him understand the decisions that need to be made, because he's got to have a certain mentality. And look, if Adam Peters pulled Dan Quinn aside and they talked, or hell, if Josh Harris pulled the two of them aside and said, hey, where are we at? What's going on? I don't want Josh Harris saying, I'm the owner, you're going to do this. Well,
Right.
he absolutely has the right to understand what's going on with his team. He owns the damn
Sure.
team. So
Well,
I don't
I,
think
I
it's
would I I'd take that a step further. And I think we as fans forget this a lot of times. Harris's title isn't owner. Harris's title is managing partner. He's
right,
got 14 or 15 other partners that have money in this endeavor that he is responsible to. It's not just the fan base, and it's not just his pocketbook. He's got the
right.
largest group, ownership
Conglomerate,
group,
yeah,
yeah, of any team in the league outside of Green Bay who is publicly owned, right? He has
right,
more immediate people to answer to than anybody else. But to take this where I think you were going with that, I don't ever want to hear about Harris calling Quinn and Peters and saying bench Daniels. Does he absolutely have a right and a need to know
never.
what's going on and what his football people are deciding? Yes, he does. And I will never
Right,
gainsay that. But he's hired good football people. You'll let Quinn and Peters make this decision and and and
right,
explain why they did so that you're in the know. If they ask you for your opinion, great. If they don't, even better. Because if I'm in Harris's position, I don't want my football guys looking at me and going, what do you think, boss? I want them looking at me and going, this is what we need to do. We need your buy off.
right.
So,
Who's the oh my gosh, the CEO of GE, is it Jack Sawyer?
wait,
Hold on. Jack
current or
Welsh, that's his name, Jack Welsh.
Jack Welch, the former, yeah,
Former.
Jack Welch.
Jack Welsh had a handful of books, and I've looked into some of them. I don't know that I've ever read any of them cover to cover, but some of the best things that I've ever heard is he goes he's the CEO of GE, which is General Electric, a massive company, right? He goes in and he's in this meeting and with some multiple heads of departments, and he's sitting at the head of the table, or he goes down to the floor or something, and the head of engineering for their dishwasher or whatever pulls him aside and starts talking to him. He said, "Well, this is this and this and blah blah blah," and Jack Welch looks at him and goes, "Hold on, what are you telling me?" And he goes, "Well, I'm explaining to you how it works." He goes, "Well, I pay you to know how it works.
Right.
I want you to tell me how it's going to work long term, but I'm paying you to be this, you know what I mean, the professional here. I'm paying you to be the one that knows how every nut is and bolt are formed. I just want you to
Yep.
keep me looped in on how things are going." Like, so it's like the same mentality that a lot, and I think that that's kind of where Josh Harris is I'm not going to tell you how to do your job, but when you do your job, I want you to keep me looped in so I know what's going on. And I think that's probably I think it's more that's closer to the way that things went down with the Jayden shutdown, and I think the doctors were consulted. I think Cliff Kingsbury was consulted.
Sure.
Honestly, I think the David Blau was consulted now that Pritchard is essentially gone, and I mean, we might even see more on Hard Knocks tonight that just dropped at 9 o'clock, because we might actually get a little insight as to how that went down. But I don't think it was Dan Quinn's call or Adam Peters' call specifically, but I think together they made the decision. And I want him to get reps. I admittedly will say I probably would have pushed hard against him getting benched. I just shouldn't say benched, getting shelved for the rest of the season, because I want him to get the experience, but that's just me. I get why they're putting him on ice, because we also don't know the extent of the arm. And for all we know, we could find out that next week he has a minor procedure on his elbow to clean up some scar tissue or something, right? And it's going to take 8 weeks to recover, and they're just ready to get him into that recovery plan. I don't know. I'm speculating, but I think that I don't think there's an easy answer here. I don't think there's one person that made the decision. I think the two football people made that choice, and I think it made a lot of sense. That I think it was an educated decision. Now, whether they're right or not, and we'll never know, but I think they made the call the best that they could.
And I absolutely agree with that. I think, that this was a joint decision amongst, to use your phrase, adults in the room. Um, I don't know that it's the decision I would have made, but I trust the guys making it.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, you know what? Mariota's going to play this week. We'll talk. Well, we'll wait and talk next week about whether or not you'd play somebody, somebody developmental to see what they've got. Think about
I
that when
think
we
you're
watch the
past that
Philadelphia
point.
game this weekend.
I think you're past that point now. I don't know that I throw Hartman to the wolves with Philly twice and Dallas once, right? Like I don't know that, but I guess you could theoretically. I mean, Josh Johnson's the other guy on the roster. So
Yeah, but I don't think you do
before
that
we
to
sign
Josh
this thing off,
Johnson.
I do have, huh?
I don't think you do that to Josh Johnson. He is who he is at this point in time. The question is whether or not you've got anything in Hartman.
Right. I
So,
mean, yeah, and maybe you're right. Today being a short week, maybe next week you think about if you want to trot him out for two and just let him prep. But before we tap out, I will say got to get a little love to Antonio Hamilton Sr., who kind of had a hell of a game quietly. Well, it wasn't quietly; it was pretty vocally actually. He had a really good game, but that guy, I didn't realize he's a 32-year-old 9-year vet, which is bananas to me. But he had a good football game. He made some plays. He also got lucky; he got bailed out a little bit on a couple lollipop throws that he was able to make a play on. But I was happy to see him make some plays. Um, but Uh, I'm I'm curious to see what we can do this weekend. I think I think we have the ability. To your point, that I don't think this is a guaranteed loss. Philly's got everything to play for. We don't. Philly's got every reason to have the pressure. We don't. Philly's got every reason to be pressing, and we don't.
Mhm.
I hope. Ultimately, I don't think the score is again the most important thing. I want to see. I don't care if we target Sinnott 15 freaking times if it means that we're trying to get him reps. I don't care if we see guys like Johnny Newton or Drake Jackson, who's going to be active, who looks to be active for the first time this season after we kind
Yeah.
of stole him off injury waivers. I'd love to see something out of that kid and see if he can develop into see if he's got some juice to play. Answer some other questions. Again, I really don't care if we win or lose. If we happen to win because some of these young kids ball out, I'm happy to see them ball out, and I would take that any day of the week. So, what do you? I guess what's your overall? Are you in the same boat? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it's pretty much what I'm thinking. I mean, it's a home game as opposed to in Philadelphia, and I think that makes a bigger difference. Philadelphia is a hard place to go play. Um,
Yeah.
I think it makes a difference. I don't see this as unwinnable. I'll be honest and tell you, it's not. I don't think we certainly shouldn't be favored by any stretch of the imagination. I was just digging to look and see if I could find whether or not Philadelphia's got anything to play for. Obviously, they are going to win the division at this point in time. I think, right? I don't see anybody. I don't see
Dallas
any.
would have to win out, and Philly would have to lose out.
Right. I mean, the odds are not good that Philadelphia doesn't win the
Yeah,
division
I
at the
mean, could you
moment.
imagine? Could you imagine us? Can you imagine us sweeping Philly and getting swept by Dallas? Like that's what would literally have to happen in order for us to,
Right.
in order for Dallas to overcome Philly. We would have to beat Philly twice, and we would have to lose to Dallas, and then Philly would have to lose. Oh my gosh, hold on. Was it the Chargers?
Yeah, but all right. So, hey, I'm looking
Who's
at
their
this. It's
the Buffalo Bills? They'd have. I guess they could.
no, hey, Derek, I don't. Dallas can't catch them because of the tie. Here's the thing:
Hang
their
on, hang on, hang
conference
on.
record. Dallas is 3-6-1. Philadelphia is 7-3 in the conference, and that conference is your first tiebreaker.
Yeah, but conference record doesn't matter. It's head to head. So if Dallas were to win out, they end up 9-7, and if Eagles were 9-7-1, and if Philly were to lose out, they end up 9-8. So Dallas is a half a
No,
game ahead of them.
yeah, but I don't see that happening. And here's the
No,
here's
I
the
don't
next
either.
thing.
I'm just,
Here's the next thing. Philadelphia's Los Angeles is going to have to lose at least two and maybe all three for Philadelphia to overtake them for the top seed in the conference. And that's assuming the Bears don't win two of the next three. I
oh no,
it
they're
doesn't
no. Philly's probably Philly's likely to be at best the 2 seed, and that's if the Bears crumble. Probably the 3
right,
seed.
right. See, I don't I
Uh,
don't I don't at this point in time, I almost see Philadelphia conserving their powder as much as they possibly can for the postseason, which might
right.
potentially make them dangerous or make them vulnerable. I don't know. I think we have a
Yeah.
shot. to use an overused cliche, I guess we've got a puncher's chance at this. But I don't know. I want to see the
Lord.
same thing I wanted to see for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
The NFC West has 3 teams that already have double-digit wins.
I
There's
know.
only one other team in the conference that has 10 or more, and it's Chicago.
Yep.
That is
So
crazy.
I don't see, and the playoff picture is going to get a whole lot more clear after this weekend. But I think we've got a chance, but I don't think it's a great chance to win this weekend. I don't think we have a great chance to win any of the last 3 games. But
I also, to your point, I also don't think that we should be looked at as though it's an impossible feat.
No, I don't think it's an impossible feat. I don't think Philadelphia is playing crazy great football right now. I don't think we're playing bad football.
Especially since if Philly wins Saturday, they clinch the division, and then Dallas and Philly have nothing to play for over the final 2 weeks.
Right.
Because it means Dallas been eliminated, and Philly's literally got nothing to play for. So
you are correct. So
anyway,
I mean, you hold my feet to the fire,
we are tapping that time.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Philadelphia to win this weekend. You hold my feet to the fire, but not by a lot, like 24-17.
Yeah, I agree, because I think you would kind of be. I think you'd be a little jaded if you acted like we were the team that was gonna, unless you got some real weird analysis that, because that would be the Redskins thing to do, is to beat Philly. You know what I mean? Because you're the underdog in the NFC East. But no, any logical person should believe that Philly has more of a chance of winning this game than we do. So
yes.
Well, brother, as always, it's been a fun conversation. We've just happened to accidentally conversate ourselves for an hour and 2 minutes. So
I know. After joking before we went on the air about how we didn't have an hour's worth of stuff to talk about.
This won't be long, but we'll figure it out. But
yeah.
You made it this far. We appreciate you. Please hook us up with a like, a share, and a follow if you're new to us. You can find us on all major audio platforms, youtube.com, all major socials, and of course at bg.com. This is the Blind Pig Podcast. Cheers to you, brother. Appreciate the conversation. And as always, pigs are